No music. And we're recording. Hi.
See, we don't even know what to do without the
I
intro.
know. Well, I don't know, and I don't have any pictures or things to fly in, but that's okay, because I'm gonna try not to make this one 20 minutes, because I doubt anyone sits through 20 minutes, but we're gonna talk about No, we're gonna talk about Halloween. This is what was this? What'd you say, Andrea?
This is the most spooky item that we have in our house.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about Halloween. If you saw my post online, we're gonna talk about Halloween, and we're gonna talk about it from the lens of Christians. And I feel like a lot of times this topic, either one, is very serious, or two, people laugh at. Would you agree?
Agreed.
Like,
yeah, definitely.
And you grew up in a non-Christian house. Would you say that if you heard that Christians were like maybe not afraid of Halloween, but they tread lightly? Like, what would you think of that? Like a little silly, or what?
I would. Yeah, I would say it was a little silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has your mindset changed at all?
Yes,
no?
and we will definitely get into
we're
that.
We're going on that. So I'm gonna talk about Halloween, and if you're listening to this and you're a Christian, and that's really who my audience is in this video. This is not a witnessing video. This is more of a video for Christians. This is a video that pretty much I want to make this more complex for you. If you think that you're certain on a viewpoint, I'm gonna make this more complex no matter what side you line up on. That's what my specialty is. The first point I want to say is just that this is not a cause for division, right? This is not, without getting into it, this isn't like Mormons and Christians. There is a distinct theological difference between Mormons and Christians. If you don't know that, well, then that's another video. But no, this is not a gospel issue, how we participate in Halloween. But it is, in my opinion, more of a serious issue that Christians need to take a part of and their thought process and how they should participate with their families or as individuals if you don't do so already, whatever that may be. So the first thing I just want to get out of the way is probably again, this is a lot to cover. I have a little bit of a lineup here, and I'm going to try not to get too wordy with things. So the origins. So I'm going to get you in talking more because you didn't talk a lot in the last video. What origins of Halloween do you know of? And I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this before, so that's the best kind of videos.
I can't.
Do you have anything?
I can't really. No.
If I asked you what the origins of Halloween are, what's the first word that comes to your mind? Like anything?
I don't really have anything.
What, pagan would be one?
Yeah,
okay.
I guess.
So the pagan religions. There's a lot of different pagans aspects, but basically the origins of Halloween, as we know today, it's a giant melting pot. It's so many things. It's
right, and that's what I was going to say too. There's just so much.
There is so much, and so a lot of times with Christians, when we talk about Halloween, the conversation usually ends with when we say, well, it has pagan origins. And it's like, yeah, a lot of things do. You know what I mean? But the thing is that we can't judge Halloween as we know it today and how we participate it based off of hundreds of years ago or thousands of years. We can't, how people treated it. We just can't, because Halloween in 2022 America is completely different.
Right.
There's a lot of aspects from pagan, Celtic, All Hallows Eve. Catholics have a lot of things that happen around Halloween that aren't biblical. I don't know if you knew that, but Catholics have a lot of unbiblical traditions. That's another video. Lots of videos.
Lots of videos.
But yeah, so the first thing is I just want to get that out of the way because, and I wrote down this here, and this is a point, Mike Winger, which again, you'll see I bring him up a lot. I like him. He's very good. But one thing that he brought up is that baptism. If we know that baptism is a big part of Christianity, and it's a symbolization of us being born again and accepting Christ as our Savior. And as we're baptized in the Holy Spirit, we are physically baptized in water. It's not something that's necessary, right? But it's also something that we look to. When we come into repentance. Baptism has some origins in ancient Babylon as a purity ritual. So that was way before Christianity, and Jesus didn't hinder away from baptism. It was a focal point of his ministry. And to be Jewish, you have to be baptized, obviously. That's not part of Christianity as well. So I want to get the origins out of the way. We're not going to talk about origins anymore. The modern practices of Halloween, I think, are different for everyone. Did you want to tune in, add anything before I continue?
No.
Or okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the easiest thing, which is trick-or-treating. I don't think that many Christians believe that people shouldn't trick-or-treat. But if you saw the posts online, you'll know my view is pretty much I think trick-or-treating is a great thing, especially for kids. There's nothing demonic about. I was going to put up our kids' costumes this year.
Oh.
But there's nothing demonic about dressing up and going to get candy. If you know us, if you're our family watching, you know that we dressed up as Mr. and Mrs. Claus. And what were they, elves last year? Or was that a year? Or was it 3 years ago? What
They
was last
were
year?
Snow Miser and Heat Miser.
Yes, yeah. So we do that and we go get candy. And you took them to a local church's trunk or treat.
Yes.
And they handed out, I think, some Christmas bookmarks with Bible verses on it and stuff, and that's fantastic. And I know lots of churches and pastors that do that. So trick-or-treating, it's a time where if you have a family, community, outreach, if you don't have a family, guess what? You get to hand out candy. You can slap a Bible verse on a Snickers and say, here you go. So, or invite them out to church and say hi and meet your neighbors. We don't live in a city or a suburb, so we don't get trick-or-treaters. But if I did, I would look forward to it. I would definitely do something like that. But no one's going to climb up my hill in the forest. Maybe to throw eggs at cars.
Yeah,
though,
maybe.
That's the only thing that's happening. But we can't ignore Halloween. There's also a lot of a lot of things that we shouldn't be partaking in. One thing is parties. There's a lot of Halloween parties that, drinking. Women, girls dress not appropriate during Halloween. That's a very common thing. And that should go without saying. As Christians, we definitely shouldn't be partaking in that or participating in those events. When I was writing some stuff down and thinking about this issue, I actually remember my parents took me to, I don't know if I told you this, it took me to a wedding that one of her friends had, and it was a Halloween wedding.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Did I tell you that?
You mentioned that.
Yeah, it was a Halloween wedding, and from what I remember, there was nothing wrong with it. They just really liked Halloween. Like, every Halloween, I remember her house was like just cobwebs and jack-o'-lanterns and everything, and her and her husband just really liked Halloween, and I dressed up as a knight, a crusader. No. No, we rented costumes, though, I think, in that year. But I don't remember anything. Looking back, it's a little strange, I would say. But when I was younger, I didn't think anything of it. It just was kind of interesting. But I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. I wouldn't suggest it for a wedding, especially. The next thing, obviously, is, Wiccan, Pagan. A lot of things happen. A lot of people are very serious about it. They do rituals. There's a lot of New Age stuff. I'll be honest, it's a little foreign to me, as it should be. With every, if you're a Christian, you should be very foreign with it. There's a lot of that happens on the same day. So if you feel like you have a concrete view on Halloween, one thing that I would just say is that there's nothing wrong with trick-or-treating, but there's definitely something wrong with a lot of the different, Day of the Dead stuff, Wiccan rituals. Some people was Ouija boards and stuff.
Yeah.
And those two things tend to happen on the same day. And I just think as Christians, we need to be aware of that. We shouldn't be blind to that. We shouldn't ignore one in cause of the other. We should focus on one if we have a family, like we do, and use it as a tool to meet people and outreach. But also definitely stay away from the other thing. And then I mentioned Day of the Dead. That's, again, very foreign to me. Do you know a lot about Day of the Dead? I know it's a lot Latin America, Hispanic. They build altars with pictures of their past loved ones.
Who have passed,
I think again, go without saying, it's definitely not something you want to participate in. I think there's nothing biblical about it, and you can only. I would just stay away from it. I don't like anything like that. But, it's very complex. And, if you're Catholic, if you're watching this, obviously you have a different outlook than me. There's a lot of things that, maybe you we're unaware of that were unbiblical. But there's a lot of practices, with the All Hallows Eve that is definitely not biblical, and it has to do with purgatory and stuff. So, I would just encourage you to go and look into that and find out why you believe what you believe, right? That's the whole reason why I'm doing these videos, is that you should have a reason for what you believe. But yeah, it's very complex, and I think that the point is that the question I would say is that can you separate them? Before I was going to my last point, but before I do, the last part of the modern practices is gore. I want to talk about. You liked horror films growing up.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
now I can't even stomach them.
Literally, she'll pass out. She'll just drop.
Yeah.
And me, I watch a lot of stuff that you can't watch because it is very violent, and and if you didn't know that about me, I do watch a lot of violent movies sometimes, and I don't feel any conviction about it. A lot of the thing is, though, with Halloween, it's a different type of violence and gore. It's horror for the sake of it, right? There's no story. For me personally, I like movies with a story. So if you're going to have something violent, there better be a reason for it, character development or an overarching message. I look more into the script and the stories of things. But with Halloween, gore movies, costumes, I think there's a new Michael Myers. I've never seen any of them. Halloween movie came out. Halloween something. It's on Peacock. I watch The Office, so I see the ad every time I go in to watch The Office. So is and I would just say, and I know a lot of my family members, close family members, do enjoy it. And I guess the one question that I would just propose to you, and if you are one of them, is that, ask yourself, is there anything wrong with this? Should I be dressing up as a serial killer? Is that something that I should be doing? And if you're having your kid, I've seen kids dress up as Freddy, I don't know. What was it, Freddy Krueger? Is he the nightmare one? I don't know.
One of them.
They're all the same to me. I would say, yeah, there's definitely something wrong about this, and you should definitely think twice, I would say, and just use your best judgment. We're given the spirit of discernment, and I think that you would know when something is too far. I would encourage you to trust yourself. There's two more points I want to bring up, but before I do, I want to ask if you have anything that you wanted to say.
Well, what was?
I'm going to talk about a Bible verse, and then one more thing about pastors and their view of it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say that I believe that this specific topic is about conviction and whether, you are convicted one way or the other. I know that for us personally, our line is we're not really into the whole spooky situation. The kids have seen the cartoon ghosts and stuff, and Lily really likes stuff like that. They think it's fun and creative, and right, exactly. And we don't find anything wrong with that. Carving pumpkins, we don't see anything wrong with that. Going trick-or-treating, we have went to another church, like he said, last year, to a trunk or treat, and it was great seeing other believers and all these kids in a safe environment, and some of them were handing out tracts and with information about the church, and then other Bible verses, and I think personally for me that's totally fine. But also and for families, I definitely want to add that in there. If you have a family, you have kids that are young, we have young kids, I think it's important to allow them to be in a safe environment and get to, my kids love dressing up, and kids love, putting costumes on.
And you have to have discernment with dressing up.
Right, right. It's not like they're going to have a cut on their face, right? Yeah, or the guy from Saw, we're not going to do stuff like that. But as, I would definitely say for not just single people, but I'm going to say that, and, opposite of the family, is that if you have a conviction about these things and you're not comfortable, then you should not partake.
And don't let anyone make you feel bad about that either.
Yeah, and I think that's important, that if you are close to somebody who says, I'm not comfortable with this, and they're, I would say, biblically sound, I would say, yeah, of course, I'm not going to make you. But again, I think with kids, if you're a Christian couple, I think it is important to get out and, be a part of your community and your church community.
Lots of
and
churches
yeah, there's just so many
do that.
awesome things that you could do. It's a big witnessing tool, and people, especially like not in our area, we're in a rural part, of Pennsylvania, but like in cities or, suburbs, you can, like, there's kids coming to your door like that. That's an awesome opportunity to witness. And so that's what I wanted to say there. But
that actually would lead right up to my closing verse that I want to just say. But before I do, I need to point this out because it's something that I told you makes my blood boil. But I need to say it because it does drive me nuts. And that's that there's a small part of Christians who have a very hard line on Halloween. And I would say rightfully so for some of them. A lot of them come out of maybe they're Christians, but they were maybe Satanists or pagan, or they used to be a part of them and they've come out. And I'm not going to say any names, but there are a couple pastors that I've heard talk about it, and they've said some pretty outlandish things for Christians as a point of leadership, and I've heard statements like, you can't let your kids trick or treat. That they would be bringing a curse upon them. You're bringing evil spirits into your home just by participating, or jack-o'-lanterns and stuff. And whenever I hear that, as someone has never been a part of that, I hear that and it makes me sad for them, because I just feel like, it seems like there's such a weight on them from their past that it really bothers them this time of year. And it obviously affects them into what you said, don't participate in that. But to come at it from a point of leadership and to tell other Christians, like, you can't do this, you're going to bring curses on your family, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. They need to read their Bible more. There's no such thing as bringing a curse on your child or your family because you trick or treat and get Snickers from your uncle or whatever. And there's, I've heard things like generational curses, and I'll do another video on that. Maybe we'll do a spiritual warfare video. It's so outlandish, and I would just encourage you that if you are a Christian that does have that viewpoint, obviously there is something spiritually that you are not okay with this time of year and the things that happen. And I would just encourage you to definitely don't participate in any of that. But to force it on other Christians, is just not right, and it also brings a lot of fear. I've seen a lot of news articles that make fun of Christians who are just like, this mom thinks that if you watch Harry Potter, you're cursing your daughter. Like, it's something weird like that, and it's just ridiculous. There's nothing scriptural about it, and I just wanted to read this one verse here in Ephesians 6. Obviously, the armor of God is used a lot. We know we don't battle against flesh and blood. But a lot of times people stop with that statement. We don't battle against flesh and blood. But if you read on in Ephesians 6, verse 14, Paul gives us a command on how to battle spiritual darkness and spiritual warfare. He says to stand firm. Okay, so stand firm. How are we supposed to stand firm? With the belt of truth. Well, what's truth? It's not an actual belt, right? We know that. Truth is the word of God. Stand firm in his word, right? Stand firm in his word, and with the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet with readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. So we are to stand firm in his word. We're not to, rebuke curses and all this other stuff, but to just stand firm in the truth of his word. And I just wanted to, I think we'll do another video on spiritual warfare, because that is something that gets talked a lot about. And I would just, I know we watched a series by Pastor Jim Osman. He used to be part of, I think in the early 90s, he was part of it was a very charismatic group, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of
I can't remember what it was.
A lot of rebuking and binding, and in context, there's nothing wrong with certain things and prayers like that. But he did a fantastic job talking about spiritual warfare and how certain things get twisted. And he actually did one episode on generational curses, which I've heard pastors say, don't let your kids trick or treat, or you'll have a generational curse on your family. And it's like, you don't understand what that is. But if one thing I can say is in Romans 14, go read that chapter. It talks about being conscious of one another, not to judge one another. And it says here to accept the one who is weak in faith, but not for the purpose of passing judgment on his opinions. If you read this, I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but if you read this, it goes into just being courteous to one another, respecting each other's views. If you have a family member who struggles, with Halloween or they were once in that kind of stuff and, they just can't handle this, don't make fun of them. Don't go trick-or-treating at their house or think, hey, why don't give them a jack-o'-lantern or stuff like that. Respect their discernment in their own spiritual walk. And if you have someone who, takes their kids to trunk-or-treats and likes to carve pumpkins, then don't judge them and
don't tell them that they're putting a generational curse on their kids.
Your family. I'm telling you, there was a pastor who said that, and I got so mad. I've said it 3 times now, and I need to say it again. But anyway, I'm not gonna say his name. But yeah, basically my whole view is respect one another, one another, their views, and use this time for outreach and community. At our church, we have a hayride this weekend. Is it the week before Halloween? This Sunday is 1 week before, right?
I think so.
Yeah, 1 week before. So we're not doing anything for Halloween, but the week before we're having a hayride to celebrate our new pavilion and fun. And
we're going to another church for a fall festival.
Yep, we're playing we're playing music at a fall festival. I think they have a hayride there too.
They do, yeah.
Lots of hay.
Fall.
Like I said, this is the spookiest thing we have. Everything
and
else
I
is
think
fall.
it's not even really spooky.
It's not spooky. Well, no, it's not spooky. I think we have one with a spider on it, but maybe I lost it.
Yeah.
I don't like spiders. Actually, I don't care. You don't like spiders. I don't care. All right, well,
I don't like bees. Bees are more scary to me than spiders.
That's why our daughter screams every time a bee comes flying on. All right, I think that's all I have. So, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Well, I'm not going to say Happy Halloween because I don't like Halloween.
Happy Harvest.
I don't know if I said that yet. I actually don't like Halloween, but I like fall.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. We would, if somebody said, Halloween is gone, we would be completely fine with it.
Okay, Christmas is sooner.
But I like
big Christmas.
I like leaves.
Yeah.
I like fall.
And maybe we'll talk about. Some people don't like the Christmas traditions around here either.
Oh, yes. And we're big Christmas people.
Yeah, so I have an argument for that too.
Yeah.
No, I have a reason for what I believe, right? 1 Peter 3:15. Exactly. Have reasons for why you believe. All right, guys. God bless.
All right.
I'll see you in the next video.